Good evening. It's now 6:30, and I call the regular meeting of the Victoria City Council to order. Please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first item on our agenda tonight is announcements. A workshop is scheduled for Monday, March 14th at 5 p.m. to interview applicants for the Senior Advisory Committee and our Park and Rec Committee. Also, council will have an introductory discussion of the Victoria Acres Outdoor Recreation Project vision. We'll hold a workshop on Monday, March 28th at 5:30 to discuss trail gaps in the city and a possible pedestrian crossing on County Road 11 at Deer Run. All meetings of the City Council are open to the public and held in the council chambers at City Hall unless otherwise noted. In other announcements, there's still time to apply for citizen advisory boards. If you'd like to apply or learn more about Planning Commission, Park and Rec Committee, or the Senior Advisory Committee, please check out our website or contact the city clerk. Registration is now open for our annual Citizens Academy, which will be held on Wednesday evenings, April, and the first Wednesday in May. Annually, we invite residents to spend a couple of hours with city staff for 5 weeks for a hands-on, behind-the-scenes look at how the city operates. Check the city's website or contact Communications and Public Engagement Manager Kendra Grahl for more information. We're also taking nominations for our next Community Builder Award. Each year, the Community Builder Program recognizes an individual, group, business, or organization that has, through their outstanding volunteerism or exemplary action, demonstrated an extraordinary commitment to making Victoria a better place today and for the future. Nominations must be received by March 31st, and applications can be found on the city website. There are no proclamations this evening, so our next order of business is to adopt the final agenda. Council, can I get a motion to adopt the final agenda?
Motion to adopt final agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to our next item, and that is open forum. The open forum is the opportunity for anyone to address the council on an item that is not on the agenda and not in application form that will be coming to the council at a future date. We have one individual who has registered to speak in advance.
She's not here.
And she is not here. So if there is anyone else in the audience that would like to address the council, please step forward. Seeing no one, we'll move on to the next agenda on our item, or the next item on our agenda, which is the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are routine, administrative, and don't require deliberation, or are housekeeping items that are required by law. They're approved with one vote unless someone requests an item to be considered separately. Ms. Hardy, does staff wish to pull any consent items for separate discussion?
None from staff, Madam Mayor.
Any members of the council wishing? Judy?
Yes, I would like to pull 5.2.
5.2. Any others? Okay, Ms. Patnode, please let the record reflect that item 5.2 has been pulled for further discussion. Council, can I have a motion of the for the balance of the consent agenda?
Motion to adopt the balance of the consent agenda.
We have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. On to item 5.2, which was moved from the consent agenda for separate discussion and vote. 5.2 is to accept the fire and sheriff's report for January, along with the year-to-date 2021 sheriff's report. Councilmember Black?
Yes, I just wanted to make note that on the sheriff's year-end report, the total Victoria City calls that they made was 2905. Previous years were 3492, 3489, and 3492. Last year, it was 587 calls short of the average. And I was just wondering, I know that they had issue with staff being able to service our area, and they had talked about refunding us for some of that, and I'm just wondering where we are with that.
Ms. Hardy, please.
Thank you, Mayor, Councilmember Black, members of the council. We were actually just notified on, it might have even been Friday, either Thursday or Friday last week, from the sheriff's office that we would be getting some funds back, and that amount is roughly $37,000 for the shifts that were not able to be filled from those staffing shortages for 2021.
Or 2021? Okay.
Councilmember Black?
How are we doing for 2022? Have they talked about being able to fill those positions now?
Mayor, Councilmember Black, members of the council, a couple of the city managers met with the sheriff just this last week, and he seemed pretty optimistic about the progress that they're making on staffing. Of course, there still is a challenge nationwide. Carver County Sheriff's Office is not immune from that. But the way I understand it is that our shifts in Victoria are filled at the moment. They're putting a number of people through their training process. They're currently in field training, and so they're making progress on filling the shifts countywide, which means that it would be less time away from Victoria city limits to help cover those county shifts.
Terrific. Councilmember Black, anything else?
How are we getting that report given to us so that we know? Because I see the number, but I don't know how they're coming up with that.
Ms. Hardy?
Thank you, Mayor, Councilmember Black, members of the council. I'm not quite certain exactly how they pull the information, but it does all come generated from their CAD system, and then everything is assigned different numbers, categories that gets pulled together every month and then reported back to us. So if there's specifics on how that's done, I'm happy to talk to the sheriff to get more detail behind that.
Okay, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? That's it. All right. Council, any other questions or thoughts on 5.2?
Yeah, I mean,
Councilmember Gunderson?
16% of the calls from 3 years prior, that's either a phenomenal year in calls to dropping, or needing to have calls for service, or we're not able to answer them. I would want to know in what categories that they dropped, and and some can be explained, but huge drops in numbers in one category from the year before would signal something's.
Yeah.
Dana.
Oh, Ms. Hardy?
Thank you, Mayor, Councilmember Gunderson, members of the council. Yes, these are conversations that we staff have been having with the sheriff's office, and they've been providing us some data. So over the last week, 10 days, the sheriff's office has been providing a number of data to us at our request so we can take a closer look at some of those trends that are happening. As Councilmember Black pointed out, and as the sheriff was here before us not too long ago talking about the staffing shortages, that has had an impact on calls for service. And the sheriff has shared that all calls for service are getting responded to. What we're probably seeing, and well, one example of the decrease in those numbers is that if you don't have somebody on shift and in town, what you're missing out on, a big number of what you're missing out on are those self-initiated calls. So your traffic stops, they're driving by in the neighborhood and they see a garage door open and they address that. Those are the things that are falling off. They get recorded as a call for service and reported back to us. But that certainly has been affected by this challenge. Another example, as you heard the sheriff talk about how they're decreasing or responding to less medical calls that had gotten reported back to us. So we're seeing a less number in that. But There's a few other things that we'll need to dig into yet as we're just getting that data and mining through that information to look and see where those trends are and be working with the sheriff's department or the sheriff's office on how we can best serve our community's public safety needs.
Great.
Well, I can tell you.
Councilmember Black?
Yes, I can tell you that in 2020, total traffic stops were 1446. In 2021, it was 1101. So they're not around.
Council, anything else? With that, I'll take a motion to accept the fire and sheriff's report for January, along with the year-to-date 2021 sheriff's report.
Make a motion to accept the report.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Now moving on to our regular agenda. We have a couple of items on our regular agenda this evening. The first one, item 6.1, is to approve the Planning Commission appointments for 2022. Assisting us with that process this evening is City Clerk Sydney Patnode. Ms. Patnode.
I think you, from the planning commission workshop, or the workshop that you just held, it sounds like that there was consensus, so there is a motion sheet, so I guess somebody just needs to.
Sure.
Okay,
Go ahead.
Alvin's got it. So we discussed the appointments earlier this evening, and is there any other further discussion? With that, I will take a motion.
I make a motion to appoint Jared Kuhn, John Iverson, and Christian Pedersen to the Planning Commission for a 3-year term beginning April 1st, 2022, and Eric Rem to the Planning Commission as alternate 1.
Terrific, thank you. We have a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 6.2 is a sketch plat for the Simon property. Presenting this evening is our Community and Economic Development Director, Marty Dahl. Mr. Dahl, take it away.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Yes, for you this evening is a sketch or concept plan for the Simon property, which we will review here in just a moment. This application was made by Loomis Development. Mr. Loomis is here as well to answer any questions you may have as we conclude the presentation. So just a reminder, this is a sketch plat process, so no formal approvals or actions are to be taken. It's really just an opportunity to provide guidance and some feedback to the applicant on things that the council is seeing as we review. Property owners within 350 feet of this property were notified and invited to participate, not in this meeting, sorry, but in the Planning Commission meeting that was held 2 weeks ago in lieu of a separate neighborhood meeting. So we did have a couple of folks attend, and the information was included in your packet, and we'll go over that in this presentation as well. So the property that is the subject property we're talking about this evening is located at 5460 Marsh Lake Road. It is south and east of the Laketown developments, west of the Schmieg property, and north of Marsh Lake Road. The parcel itself is approximately 8 acres, with about 6.1 of those being developable. It's currently an agricultural parcel with some trees, and there are existing buildings that would be anticipated to be removed with development, as well as some small wetland. With any development property, a tree survey would be required as this moves forward to preliminary plat, and this property is within the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District, so would be subject to their rules. The parcel is guided by the city's comp plan for low-density residential. They are proposing 16 lots on 6.1 net acres, which equates to about 2.6 units per acre, which would fall within that low-density residential guided zone. The property is currently zoned agricultural, and would be proposed to be rezoned to PUD with R1 underlying zoning. This is the concept layout of the lots and the property, and we can come back to this slide with any questions or discussion. So the lot regulations that are being proposed for this development include a minimum lot area of 9,500 square feet, a minimum lot width of 70 feet, minimum lot depth of 130 feet, 8-foot side yard setbacks, 20-foot front yard setback, 30-foot rear, a 50-foot setback from Marsh Lake Road, and a corner setback of 20 feet. I included the adjacent Laketown 16th edition bulk regulations just just as a comparison, you'll see that a lot of the setbacks are very similar, and these lots are actually proposed to be slightly larger than the Laketown 16th edition lots. Staff does intend to continue discussions with the applicant to determine if front and/or side yard setbacks can be increased as this moves forward without limiting usable rear yard space. And as I noted, the property is proposed to be rezoned from ag to PUD. So this property does abut Marsh Lake Road, and like the adjacent Laketown 16th parcel, a 40-foot landscape buffer and berm would be required along Marsh Lake Road. The concept plan does include an area for that 40-foot buffer. The applicant has indicated that they don't believe they can make a full 8-foot average berm fit to be able to still create lots that would have some usable space, but does intend to include a berm of comparable size between 4 and 6 feet as that of the adjacent Laketown 16th edition. There is not a park identified in the comp plan for this location, so the applicant would be requested to satisfy park dedication with fee. Moving on to transportation and right-of-way, so there is a proposal to extend Catkin Way from the Laketown 16th edition. Staff is supportive of that as shown in the concept with a 60-foot right-of-way. Staff is also supportive of the additional right-of-way that's being showed for dedication for future Marsh Lake Road realignment. The current proposal shows a potential connection to Timber Terrace, which would be anticipated to extend to Marsh Lake Road. The applicant has indicated that it's their intention to cul-de-sac Catkin Way if the city is not the one to construct that extension of Timber Terrace. Just to back up a little bit as we continue to talk about the Timber Terrace connection a little bit. So the council may recall that the extension of Timber Terrace was budgeted for 2022 construction. The reason being is we have quite a bit of development that's taken place in this area, and there are some key connections to Marsh Lake Road that have not yet been made just due to the fact that the properties that they need to go through to make those connections have not been developed. Those being Creekside Lane Creek View Drive on the far west side, Red Fox Drive in the center, and then Timber Terrace, which would be anticipated to go through this parcel. Those connections to Marsh Lake Road have been a priority of the council and are important because there are no additional connections allowed to Highway 11. So it's really the opportunity to provide some traffic flow through some of those existing developments to the north. So with this concept plan, it does create more than 40 lots on a single access of Bridle Way and Catkin Way. And as you know, the fire code does require a secondary access if there are more than 40. So as was noted in your background packet, staff does intend to continue to work with the applicant to make that connection to Timber Terrace, of Timber Terrace to Marsh Lake Road, and tying Timber Terrace, Catkin, and Marsh Lake together to, again, meet the needs, the priority connection need, as well as adhere to the fire code to have 2 access points to that development. So some of the things that will continue to be discussed with the applicant as staff is the city responsibility for connection versus the developer responsibility. Staff does believe that a portion of that connection should be or could be the responsibility of the city when you're looking at the portion of it that does not even encounter this property in question, and that connection was budgeted by the city for 2022. So that's obviously a point for council consideration and a piece that staff will continue to discuss with the developer. That connection will also require coordination for stormwater management, and then the city will also need to continue to work toward obtaining right-of-way for this connection. As you may recall, it does show the roadway straddling the property boundary, both of the Simon property and the Schmieg property adjacent to it. Trail and sidewalks, so there is no trail proposed within this development, but there is 6-foot concrete sidewalks proposed on one side of all local streets. Utilities and stormwater, so this parcel will be served with utilities, water and sewer by via connection to the adjacent developments. As I noted, the Minnehaha Creek Watershed District is the watershed governing body of this parcel, and they did provide some initial feedback that was included in your background packet. As with all developments, stormwater features, wetlands, and buffers would need to be deeded to the city. Access would need to be provided to all stormwater ponds in accordance with standards. And then there is further discussion coordination that would be required related to the stormwater impacts that would be created by that timber terrace extension. As I noted, we did conduct a neighborhood meeting as part of the previous planning commission meeting. The adjacent property owners, the Schmiegs, were in attendance, and they did indicate that they have continued to be in contact with staff and having discussions related to the desired easements and the progress of this proposed development. So with that, there are a few items that staff has called out for consideration by the city council as you think about this concept plan. So one is the desire to continue discussions on possible increase of front yard and side yard setbacks. One is a second is a request to have cross sections developed with a preliminary plat to show what a proposed berm and planting along Marsh Lake Road would look like in conjunction with the new homes, the properties on the south side of Marsh Lake Road, as well as that connection into the berm that's provided along the Laketown 16th development. There are intended to be a couple of double and triple fronted lots within this development, so staff would recommend that the buffer and screening requirements be adhered to for those double and triple fronted lots. As has been noted, continued discussions are needed related to that connection of Timber Terrace. A need to finalize utility plans to the satisfaction of engineering staff, as well as stormwater plans to the satisfaction of the MCWD. And then a standard is just to have all the necessary wetland delineation reports, maintenance access for stormwater ponds, tree surveys, and those calculations submitted with any future preliminary plat submittal. So with that, Mayor, Council, I will stand for questions, and as I mentioned, we do have representatives from the developer here who can answer questions as well.
Terrific, thank you. Marty. Council, questions, comments?
Stop. Can you go back to that one?
That one?
Councilmember Black, you want to start us off?
Yes, I want to understand the Timber Trail connection a little more as to who is responsible for that and why. And if we have budgeted, what do we have budgeted for?
Council,
Can you take us to that map with all the connections? There you go.
so Councilmember Black, Mayor, members of the council, I will try to speak to this as best as I can. Unfortunately, our city engineer, Kara Guerin, is on vacation this week, so she did provide me with some talking points and information related to this. So I will do my best Kara impersonation to try and answer those questions. So the council has, prior to a development proposal coming forward on this property, the council had directed staff to budget for and plan to make that connection to Timber Terrace. It was determined that just preliminary review of these items, that the Timber Terrace connection would likely be the most efficient connection of the three if the city were to need to undertake and create that connection itself, which the council had directed previously the city to look at. You will also recall that we needed easement for utility infrastructure in this same area. So that was granted by the Schmiegs last year so that the water and sewer infrastructure could be pulled down to the south growth developments of Hunters Brook and Marsh Hollow. The roadway at that time was purposely separated from the utility easement just because we know a road has a much larger impact on the property and likely requires further discussion and analysis, and there was some importance or a bit of a necessity to expedite the utility extension for those. So that was pulled out separately. So while we have easement for the utilities, we don't have easement for the roadway. And then, as I mentioned, staff had been directed to move forward with that. So the council does have, or had included in the budget, some funds to make that connection. With a development proposal now on this property, as was noted, in a typical scenario where we are ending up in a situation where we have more than 40 homes, we would typically require a secondary access to be able to serve those properties. So absent the Timber Terrace situation, staff would likely require that a connection be made to Marsh Lake Road from Catkin to provide that secondary access, which again is possible. It's something that could be done, but I don't think is ultimately the desired outcome when we have been planning for this Timber Terrace connection. So staff's conversations have been that we believe that there should be some cost share with that connection, that the developer would be required to make a connection to Marsh Lake Road. So let's determine what the cost of that would be. But let's make sure we do it the way that we want to do it, with that connection to Timber Terrace, and the city potentially being responsible for the remainder of that. And as I mentioned, there is a portion of this that would not be on this development property as designed and planned. Portion of it would be on the Schmieg side of it, as well as there is a small gap to the north of this property that's not within this property that would need to be connected.
Well, the reason I asked is because I saw the letter from Mr. Loomis saying that if he had to pay for the road, he could do the project. So are we working with them on that?
And if your prerogative, would ask Mr. Loomis to speak to that.
Come on forward. Welcome.
Good evening, Scott Loomis here, Loomis Development.
Welcome.
We've been having continued discussions with the city engineer and staff on how that road is gonna get put in, and cost sharing and stuff like that. So we're still kind of hammering out the details and the costs, and from what point, we were talking who pays for what, and so it's still in the works. It's still all new right now. So we had
So you're negotiable.
We're working through it, figuring out the costs right now. So our engineers are kind of running the numbers on our meeting from that we had last week with the city engineer. So
Okay,
yep.
all right, thank you.
Marty, just to that point, the request to finish the road isn't outside the bounds of what we'd normally ask. Let's just say, in this case, Lennar, if it were another Lake Town addition, we would ask them to make that connection. And it's similar to what we have done in off of 78th Street with Brookmore in the connection for Cochia.
Yeah, that is the prerogative of the city council. Again, this being a PUD, that a request could be made that the developer should make that full connection. The Cochia Lane connection by Pulte is a similar example of this, where it's access was needed, but not necessarily the construction of the road, and that was one of the PUD gives of that development, that they would construct that road. What makes this parcel a little more challenging is just the limited number of homes that can be constructed on the property, and the high expense of the roadway that would need to go through there. So again, it is the prerogative of the council if they think that is the appropriate way to move forward, but it does likely make it more difficult for the applicant to make a development work if they are responsible for the full construction cost of that roadway.
So
Member Gunderson.
maybe if this is a question for Chief Hager, but the connection for this, based on the number, is a safety issue, correct? That's why we do this for the 2 access points.
Yes.
So is it possible to create an emergency-only style road until such time the property to the Schmieg property is ever going to be developed, or if ever? Is that something that's possible, and does that satisfy the safety aspect for 2 connections, which a safety road may be, or safety access may be less expensive than a fully traversable road?
Yeah, Councilmember Gunderson, Mayor's member of the council. I don't even know if Andrew's still here. I was going to say he can come up and kick me if I'm not saying this, but yes, we have provided for emergency access points in the past that has satisfied the fire code requirements. So it really is an access fire code issue for emergencies. And we have accommodated that through emergency access before. Just a connection from Catkin Way to Marsh Lake Road within this development parcel would also satisfy that because it would connect. But you are then losing that connection for Timber Terrace to Timber Terrace, and we're unsure, or it's unknown at what point in time Red Fox Drive or Creekview Drive will develop or be connected. So again, it's something for the council to weigh how important that connection to Timber Terrace is.
Councilmember Gunderson, anything else? Okay. Council, other questions?
When do we expect, I guess, to have the cost to the, right? So I know, right, you said we're looking into what the cost would be. When do we expect to have those numbers to know what this would look like?
Yeah, Councilmember Roberts, Mayor, members of the council, those would likely come with an authorization of preliminary design for the roadway that hasn't taken place yet. If the applicant does choose to move forward with their development, that would likely be the catalyst to do that. Again, if they do choose not to, I think based on previous direction from the council, we would probably still pull together a scope and bring that to the council to determine if you want to move forward with that roadway connection absent development. But so that has not taken place yet, and that would kind of be the catalyst to get that information.
Councilmember Roberts, anything else?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say,
Councilmember Gunderson.
we're still on the road, or are we moving beyond the road?
Go ahead.
I have one more comment. I would not favor doing just an emergency access. If we're gonna put a road in, let's put a road in.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that would be my preference there.
We still have to get right of way as well.
Excuse me?
We would still have to get right of way as well.
Yeah. Right. All right. Any other comments on the road? Councilmember Gunderson, moving on.
Can you go to the last of the screen? Sorry, I just had to register my side yard setback comment. Only because Lake Town has 8 feet, do I think contiguous neighborhoods, an extension, looking at this as an extension, does it make sense to allow developer 8 feet? Because it keeps continuity with the other development. However, it doesn't make me any less happy that Lake Town gets 8 feet. And this is gonna be 8 feet. Again, we keep shrinking stuff in to try to shoehorn stuff in. That's where I'm at. Sorry. I just had to register my side yard setback. We gotta quit shoehorning stuff in.
Front yard setback, yeah, shouldn't the front yard setback be 25?
Councilmember Black, Mayor, members of the council, that is one of the things, staff is typically not super supportive of a 20-foot front yard setback, just because we want to ensure that there's an ability to park vehicles and driveways. They have been brought forward and they have been approved by the council in the past. I think that that would be part of a preliminary plat review, is how much space do we actually have from the curb line. So there's obviously, from the setback is from the property line, do you have enough room from the curb to park vehicles? That typically goes into staff's review of those situations. And again, the other limiting factors from the development side of things is with Marsh Lake Road, it does shrink rear yards. So the more you increase those front yards, the less usable rear yard space as you get squeezed to Marsh Lake Road. So those are the things that staff typically looks at when we get a fully engineered preliminary plat application. And is there an ability to increase this or decrease that, and what makes sense and what provides for the best lot? So, but we certainly would plan to do that like we do with any other development as we move forward.
Where did you show the sidewalks on this? Because that obviously is something that could affect parking in a driveway too.
Yeah.
So the sidewalk is on the north side, and that's the side that it is on in the Laketown 16th development. So it would continue through on Catkin on the north side.
How far off the away from the road is the back of the, off of Marsh Lake Road is the back of the lots.
So,
I think, isn't it?
yeah, Councilmember Roberts, Mayor, member of the council, I can't recall, and maybe Scott, do you recall what the right-of-way distance was, the additional right-of-way distance?
30, I think, wasn't it 30 feet?
Yeah, I can't recall what the additional distance for the additional right-of-way, but then from the lot line, from the right-of-way line, a 40-foot buffer would be required. So that's not necessarily saying it needs to be 40 feet of berm, but a 40-foot buffer from that line, which, at the end of the day would result in a 50-plus setback from the roadway.
How big are these houses?
Mr. Loomis, welcome back.
Yep. These will be consistent with 2 stories, 2,500 to 3,000 square foot that Lake Town has. So it'll be a similar product as Lennar. And we are proposing, I see you don't like the 8-foot yard setbacks. We are proposing 70-foot wide lots. They have 65, so we have an additional 5 feet to work with. And the 20-yard front setback is tough on the southern where Marsh Lake is, because that berm, just on the different elevations from Marsh Lake to where the actual property is here, it's hard to get 8 feet. So we're gonna be around the 6 foot for a berm roughly. I don't have the exact numbers, but have a preliminary grading plan, and it's really tough to get that height and then have the drainage in the backyard and everything flow. If these are 2-level properties, 8 foot's no problem. And then we wouldn't need the house as far forward, because otherwise if we push it farther back, then the backyard just gets smaller and smaller, So some of those Lennars there, those are pretty far back, and we're trying to not get them that close, so that people can have something in their backyard, playground set, a deck, and, stuff like that.
Yeah. All right. Okay, other questions? Okay. All right, there's no action being requested tonight. This is just a way for staff and the developer to get some feedback. So I think with that, there are no more items on our regular agenda tonight. So now we'll move on to reports and emerging issues. All right. Attorney Voights, you're up first. Anything from?
Mayor and council, always happy to answer questions. Nothing that I need to tell you, though, tonight.
All right, terrific. Ms. Hardy, anything from staff?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Yes, actually, this evening, today, we were notified that we received a Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. It's a mouthful, but that was received from the Government Finance Officers Association, otherwise known as GFOA. That Certificate of Achievement is the highest form of recognition in governmental accounting and financial reporting. So I just wanted to commend council for your leadership and your financial policies. And I'd also like to recognize Trish, our finance director, for the work that she's done in compiling our financial data into the comprehensive annual financial report, of which this award reflects. So congratulations to you all.
Awesome, that's great news. Anything else from staff?
From staff?
Nothing from staff, sorry. Daydreaming
Council
over here.
members. Councilmember Roberts, anything? Councilmember Black, what do you
Yes.
got for us tonight?
I got a letter from Linda, who runs the Encore Adult Daycare Service Program. They are back up and running, and they are listed in our senior resource guide, which is downstairs, and it's also on the website. They're looking to accommodate people coming to their adult daycare services, and I just wanted to give a little shout out for them and let you know that for 10 years, my mom went there and she loved it. And if you are looking for a place for your mom or your dad to go and have some time with friends and get out of the house, this is the place to take them. So
Thank you.
that's it.
Yeah, as COVID numbers continue to drop and drop pretty sharply, we'll start to see a lot more of these things open up. So it's wonderful that
They're
that's-
ready. They're lonely.
that is a valuable resource for our community. Thank you
Yes.
so much. Anything else? Councilmember Black? Councilmember Gunderson, anything from you?
Yeah, tomorrow's March 1st. Ice out is soon to follow. There's nothing wrong with a little pond skating or pond hockey, but please take your hockey nets and other amenities that may be out on the ice off as quickly as you can, just so that we can avoid any debris or hockey goalies, any sinking left in the ponds for the summer so that they can be used for next winter.
Terrific. Thank you for that reminder. Councilmember Hebert, anything from you? All right. I just have one quick announcement, too, that I want to say congratulations to Victoria's own Chief Hager, who was appointed to serve as Vice President of the Metro Fire Chiefs Association. So congratulations to him for that fabulous leadership recognition and another great representative of the city of Victoria. So with that, there are no more items to come before the body this evening, so I will take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much and have a great night.
Thank you.